So we've talked about the problems and we've talked about the difference between customer experience and customer service. What has this got to do with social media, and how can social media help?
Oh my God, I've had this question from so many senior execs from travel brands. It's not funny anymore. So seriously,
well, it's just. I mean, social media. Come on, Vimal. Social media is just taking pictures of your lunch and cat photos. Surely.
Yeah. So look, the problem we have today in most businesses, and this is not only in travel, right? We tend to operate in silos, right? So you've got, sales, you've got marketing, you've got operations, you've got customer service, and all of that. We kind of operate in silos, right? So marketing, advertisers gets leads, hands over to sales. Sales will disqualify most of the leads and hopefully sell a few, and then hand over to operations to execute, right? Operations plays by their own rule book, typically not written by the same guys who wrote the marketing copy or the advertising copy, right? And so lots of promises are made to customers, and this is precisely where there's a huge gap between what marketing and advertising has promised and what it has delivered, right? So Bain and Company did a survey where they asked about 360 organizations which thought they were very customer centric to rate themselves. Do you think you're delivering superior customer experience? And so great. So the leaders in those companies, 80% of them said, yes, we are delivering superior customer service. They asked the customers of those companies, and only 8% said that. So that's a huge gap, right? Huge gap of 80% versus 8%. It's in my industry, that's big enough to fly a 747 through, as we would say, right? So here's where I think, if you talk about where social media can help, this is how it is, right? Everyone is on social media. We've got to understand that your customers, your staff, your partners, everyone, right? 80%, there's lots of data out there, Tim, and you know this as well as I do. 83% of the internet-enabled world population is on social media, and they're all accessing it through their phones, right? So here's the thing you need to understand. It's an ecosystem and a platform where everybody is present. Your fans, your customers, your employees. You need to start getting your internal teams on social. You need to start getting them on the same page. You need to connect HR. You need to connect them to your customers. The key question is this: how can you use social media to your benefit as opposed to simply advertising on it, right? And particularly when it comes to customers, because you asked me how can social media help. So I've got a couple of things to tell you how you can help, right? So the very first thing you can do with social media, you can connect with and listen to your customers, because everybody's on social media. Now, travel is a very high touch industry, right? Social media gives you an opportunity to touch your customers long before they actually arrive at the airport or fly on your airline or get on your train or whatever it is, right? Customer experience ultimately is about your customers. You can't do anything about the experience if you don't know what to improve and if you don't know your customers. So if you connect with your customers, you will understand that even before they tell you what their problems are, they will be telling their friends and their family. Then they will tell you what the problems are. So social media gives you a chance to come out in front of that. It allows you to connect to customers and talk to them and understand their concerns, their problems, and the impact that those problems are having on them, right? That's I think the very first way that social media can help. I think the second way social media can really help is something that a lot of businesses, not only travel businesses, struggle with, right? Customer acquisition and retention. Two of the biggest costs for any business today. There's lots of research out there that says it's 25 times more costly to gain a customer than to keep one. Loyal customers spend 30, 40, 70% more, and so on, right? When you operate social media as an integral part of your business, right, what you're doing is effectively reducing the emotional distance between your brand and your customers. And when you have greater brand proximity, affinity, using social media, what you're doing is you're engaging your current customers. You're making it cheaper to actually recruit new customers. Your brand is, top of mind for customers, and you're, sustainably differentiating yourself from your competitors, right? So that's it's a pretty good use case for social media, I think, right? And perhaps the last thing, or the last way that social media can help you, just extrapolating from the first two that I gave you. When you communicate to your customers, right, or to people who are just following your brand and have an affinity with your brand, when you communicate with them directly, socially, what you're effectively doing is bridging the gap between customer expectations and your execution. So instead of advertising and promising the world, like a lot of airlines tend to advertise first class and business class benefits and all of that.
But nobody looks at adverts anyway, do they?
Well, yeah, and even if they do, right? I mean, most people will say, well, guess what? 98% of people travel in economy, right?
Yeah.
And so your advertisement doesn't really connect to most people. And so what you're effectively saying is, here's an advert for first and business, and everybody is looking at it is saying, well, that's not for me.
No.
But when you use social media socially, right, what you're doing is you're actually telling stories, you're showing emotion, you're trying to be approachable, engaging in two-way communication, which is what social media allows you to do. This invites customers to buy into your journey, right, and join you as an advocate of your brand, right? People love human beings. People love stories. It's why we love listening to our cousins who have gone skydiving, who went climbing Machu Picchu, or
Yeah.
who've visited Palm Atlantis in Dubai. Stories make companies human, right? They make the business a little more relatable. And so when you're doing that, you're bridging that emotional gap with your customers, and you're allowing them to come that little bit closer to you. And so their expectations and your execution becomes a little closer together.
I think it's interesting.